What's up, Broncos country? In today's edition of Bronco Talk, we are talking about a Denver Broncos victory. So let's talk Broncos. What do you want to do? I don't know. What do you want to do? I know. Let's talk Broncos. Hello and welcome into a brand new edition of Bronco Talk where we talk Denver Broncos football. And I just got to start off by saying huge, heartfelt, get well soon to Tyler Bidet. Going into this week, he was viewed as potentially taking over the RB1 spot. I don't know what the outlook of his injury is. As a matter of fact, Sean Payton was a little bit testy when it came to discussing injuries and whether or not he would be traveling with the team on the plane, and it kind of got a little bit awkward during his press conference when it came to that subject. So as we know now, we know not much, if anything. So kind of a scary play. He lost the fumble, and on the play, he got hit in his lower back. And as the Jets took possession of the ball, the camera kept panning over to him on the sideline, and at one point he was on all fours, and the training staff was kind of checking out his lower back is what it looked like. And then it came back to him being lifted up by multiple trainers and kind of set on a gurney or set on some sort of apparatus to get him carted off the field. So that resulted in a little bit of a change of game plan, I'm sure, which led to Javonte Williams really having a great second half of the game. We can talk about that more in a little bit, but it came at the expense of Tyler Bidet being injured. So we just hope that he is healthy and comes out. It was just out of caution to try to be as safe as they could with a back or spinal injury, and it just turns out that it was all precaution. That being said, huge Broncos victory in week 4, getting to 500 on the season, and it was tough sledding, honestly, with torrential downpour and conditions that weren't ideal for football as far as at least the passing game goes, and we weren't really moving the ball on the run either. Both defenses, the Jets and the Broncos, were playing very well in the first half, and throughout the game, I'd say throughout the whole game, the Jets defense was pretty strong, and I came into this game saying don't be shocked by the Denver Broncos defense either. Even though we were down Alex Singleton, I truly believe in the backups, and it looked like Justin Strnad was taking the bulk of the snaps in replacing Alex Singleton. So kudos to Justin Strnad for being that next man up. So kudos to him. Kudos to Cody Barton for filling that hole. Huge sack to start the game by Justin Strnad. Huge sack by P.J. Locke late in the game. So we were able to bring pressure, as I anticipated, onto Rodgers. And although he was 13-0 coming off of a bye, playing at home with at least 10 days rest, he's 13-1 now because the Denver Broncos played defense as I expected them to. And although there were some questionable penalties against the Denver Broncos defense, I think that I'd take the penalties. I'll take what they were called on, because we're just playing tough, hard-nosed football. You could go back to when the Broncos won Super Bowl 50. Malik Jackson was called for a handful of roughing the passer and unsportsmanlike conduct penalties throughout that whole entire season. And sometimes you just have to take the good with the bad, and I'm going to take a bunch of the good that the Denver Broncos defense is displaying through the first 4 games of this season. And if there's some pass interference calls, Pat Surtain's been called for a numerous amount of penalties throughout the first 4 games. Riley Moss got a questionable, in my opinion, pass interference call. I feel like they were both playing to the ball. And there was a pretty similar play that I'm not exactly the corner for the Jets that didn't get called for pass interference, but I'm not really gonna complain about penalties, considering that the Jets doubled, if not more, the Broncos in penalties. So there was plenty of calls that went both ways. It is what it is. But back to the game itself, the Denver Broncos really sputtered on offense, and that left Bo Nix going 12 of 25 for 60 yards. Obviously, the conditions, the weather, the torrential downpour, the rain, the whatever you want to call it, that resulted in Bo not being able to really grip the ball. They showed it on numerous occasions where he was shot putting the ball or just really not having much of a grip. At one point, he was running over to the sideline to get a hand warmer and then throwing it back because the strap was not working, and then he ran back and got it and put it on. And they toyed with a few different ways to get Bo's hands warm or dry or a combination of the two. In the first half, it wasn't looking good, and then first drive of the second half, much of the same. Honestly, I was getting concerned that the offense wasn't going to put that one drive together that they needed, and honestly, I did think it came down to one drive. The defense was rolling. We got 5 sacks on the day, pressured Rodgers all game long, and were pretty sticky to the wide receivers of the Jets. There was a pass interference call and a couple of plays where the play broke down and Rodgers was able to escape, contain, and make a play downfield. But overall, Aaron Rodgers did not light up the scoreboard at all. And something I had predicted, not necessarily on the channel, but I actually said that Brees Lightning was going to be more like Brees Electric Fence. And then by halftime, I was like, he's not even getting credit for the electric fence I gave him credit for. He ended the game with Braylon Allen really taking the bulk of the snaps, getting the confidence of the Jets offense to run through him. And that's kind of shocking because Breece Hall he came in this season as a fantasy, top tier player, not only fantasy, but also when you look at the New York Jets, if you've given Aaron Rodgers a decent run game, which Breece Hall has, that's a lot of the reasons why the Jets were viewed as a top flight AFC team. Some prognosticators, some pundits, some analysts might have even predicted the Jets to win the AFC East or the first seed in the AFC and maybe even represent the AFC in the Super Bowl. I'm not one of those people. I pretty much said it's going to be a roller coaster of a year, and I think that's starting to show that they're going to win some big games and they're going to lose some games as well. And as the season goes on, the chemistry that Rodgers has with Garrett Wilson, because training camp is one thing, and especially when, for what it's worth, Aaron Rodgers misses some of mandatory OTAs due to whatever he was doing, an ayahuasca adventure or a darkness retreat. Some people are speculating. I don't know exactly what Aaron Rodgers was doing when he had a pre-planned event going on during mandatory OTAs, but that's time away from getting that chemistry that the Broncos spent all week getting. And that's one of the big reasons why I think the Broncos were able to be as gutsy as they were, as good as they were on defense, and how they were able to put together an offensive drive to get a touchdown when the offense was really sputtering for most of the day. I mean, when your quarterback gets 60 yards passing and 50% completion percentage, just under 50%, you're not really expecting to win that game. With our defense, it obviously makes it possible. So top flight defense, continuing to roll, keep doing what they're doing with Riley Moss and Pat Surtain. Let Jaquan McMillan, I'm calling him Smack Millen the way that he's putting the wood on some players as of late, but Jaquan Smack Millen sticking to that slot receiver, and then you got Riley Moss and Pat Surtain out on the outside. It's looking good in the secondary, which is, like I said, allowing us to get to the passer. And whether that's Baker Mayfield or Aaron Rodgers, whether it's Jordan Love or it's Derek Carr, it really doesn't matter how long you've been in the league, how many games you've played, how young you are, how confident you are. That pass rush is just as confident, and when they get to you, it's going to rattle your brain just a little bit. And I think that even showed true at the end of the game. Aaron Rodgers came up lame a little bit. He was in there throughout the entire game and didn't miss a snap, but the pass rush really got to Rodgers, and he was grabbing at his left hamstring at one point. So kudos to the defense. Keep doing what you're doing because it is working. As we transition to taking a look at the offense, I had already mentioned that Bo Nix went less than 50% completion percentage, threw for 60 yards, and he did get that first touchdown pass out of the way, and my fantasy team thanks him. I was able to pick up Cortland Sutton. I think I said that a couple of videos ago, I was able to pick him up on the waiver wire in my fantasy league. So kudos to Cortland for producing. Kudos to Bo for getting his first touchdown pass in. Like I said, my fantasy team thanks you. But not only my fantasy team thanks you, but Broncos country entirely thanks you, because with number one receivers like Cortland Sutton, this offense is going to be more and more productive as the season goes on. And that's really all I can say about the passing game. It was kind of tough to watch. It was reminiscent of Tim Tebow, and although a lot of Broncos country thinks about Tim Tebow and thinks of a winner, thinks of a gamer, thinks of a lot of great things that, he took us on a playoff run that wasn't possible with the team that we were rolling with if we stuck with Kyle Orton that year. But when I think of Tim Tebow, I think of a great guy that wasn't really the quarterback I want out there for any longer than a season or two to be able to, bridge the gap. But it was very reminiscent of a Tim Tebow. Use your legs, get a couple of completions that are necessary to win the game, and sneak out of town with a victory. So we'll take it. The conditions weren't ideal, but what was ideal is Javonte Williams. I said in my last video that Javonte Williams was looking to be, a lot of people were calling for him to be replaced as RB1 with potentially Tyler Bidet, or, with his injury, potentially Jaleel McLaughlin, somebody that would get more than 1.8 yards per carry. But what I was seeing, and what advanced statistics and analytics were saying, is that Javonte was seeing a very stacked box, and something that we were able to do at the beginning, I think it was the second drive of the second half, was to start taking shots downfield. If you're able to get that box a little bit less convoluted, a little bit less congested, Javonte's still that back that's going to make a cut, get his foot in the ground, and get through the hole. A lot of what he's seeing is just a matter of, he can break one tackle, he can break two tackles, but when you've got 4 or 5, 6 people gang tackling you because you're just subject to the 8-man in the box front every time you take the handoff, it's pretty hard to produce more than 1 yard a carry. It's just not really possible. So with Bo Nix, even though he wasn't connecting entirely, but he was able to take a couple of shots downfield, that opened things up, especially with another thing to be mentioned is C.J. Mosley. It's another reason why I thought the Broncos were going to win and we were going to get the run game rolling, was C.J. Mosley was out today. So we didn't play the Jets at full strength. They also missed right tackle and had to have Morgan Moses replaced by a rookie tackle. So that was helpful for our pass rush as well. But on the offensive side of the ball, we were able to get it rolling a little bit, both with Javonte and Jaleel, and if they can, we'll see what Bidet's injury looks like going forward. But if they're able to be that 1-2 punch and add a little bit of Tyler Bidet, depending on what the news is going forward, then we'll take it on the offense, because Bo Nix can also create with his legs, and that's a 3, 4, 5-headed monster. Not to mention Audric Estime is going to be back sooner or later, and if he's able to punch it in the goal line, because that's one area of Javonte Williams' game that I'm not exactly confident in. I think that he has all the makings to be the next great Broncos running back, but for some reason that goal line, it eludes him. He's not going to punch it in from 1 yard out, and I don't know what it is, and I hope that he figures it out along the goal line, and maybe in the next 2 or 3 years he can kind of cement himself as a 1,000-yard back, as someone that can tote the rock, be a 3-down back, and really be replaced by, hopefully, 2 or 3 years from now, Jaleel McLaughlin as like the Joker back, and kind of do a smash and dash type of deal where Jaleel's catching the ball out of the backfield. And I'll give Javonte credit. That's one thing that some of the traditional running backs that have been in Denver, the Terrell Davises, the Clinton Portises, even the Mike Andersons, they weren't as good as Javonte is with his hands. He's somebody that you can line up on the outside and have him run a little dig or even just a short 3 to 5 yard crossing route, and he's going to make the catch whether you throw it to him right off the bat or let the route develop. Javonte's hands are pretty high up there in relation to the running backs in the same role. So we'll see if Devontae can keep this momentum going throughout next week and the following weeks, and hopefully good news comes from the injury to Tyler Bidet and Jaleel McLaughlin really looking nice as a change of pace back. And it's not just runs to the outside. He was able to run between the tackles. So offensively, we were able to do just enough to skate by and give Aaron Rodgers his first loss when it was off of 10 or more days rest at home. And there's not much else to be said about the victory. We owned the trenches both offensively and defensively. We were able to get just enough out of Bo's arm to get in the end zone and get the lead, and then the defense did all that they needed to. 4th down and 10, getting the ball back, sacking Rodgers on numerous occasions. Like I said, 5 sacks. We opened the game with a turnover, which was awesome, knocking that ball loose. This defense is really showing to be not only very solid tackling, but very opportune when it comes to needing a sack and needing a turnover and just needing a stop in general. Through four games this season, I stick by my original claim that the Broncos, as long as Riley Moss continues to be who he's shown to be through the first 4 games, we're going to be a top 5 unit. And if that top 5 unit is just able to skate by with just enough offense to squeak out victories like we did today, Broncos country, we're going to be heading to the playoffs. Let's stay healthy. Alex Singleton obviously is going to be missed, and certainly would love to have a playoff run with Alex Singleton, because when your defensive field general is Alex Singleton, it's going to be tilted in your favor, at least on the defensive side of the ball. So he will continue to be missed, but Cody Barton did well, especially a couple of times. Aaron Rodgers and the Jets started to run a little bit of pace, try to get no huddle going, and it looked like Cody Barton was communicating very well on what the play call was and able to get us in good coverage before Rodgers was able to take advantage and take a deep shot or a deep strike to get into good field position. Of course, a couple of plays broke down, and Rodgers was, of course, going to be Aaron Rodgers and create and make a good play. But ultimately, shutting down Breece Hall, and Braylon Allen. Braylon Allen looked better, but I think if I remember correctly, he had 34 yards rushing. So he wasn't calling home to brag about that one. So containing the run and making the Jets one-dimensional was my biggest key of the game. The Broncos did it, and they are now 2-2 on the season, 500, heading home to play the Las Vegas Raiders in Week 5, and I couldn't be more excited. We're right back where we were supposed to be, 2-2 through the first 4 games, on pace to a 10-7 record and a playoff berth in the AFC for the first time in 8 years. I think this will be year number 9 if we didn't make the playoffs, so 8-year drought. And I'm just looking forward to the entire ride. So Broncos country, please ride with me, or as we like to say around here, stampede with me all season long. Please like this video, comment, and subscribe to the channel so that we can continue to stampede all season long. And we'll see you next time on Bronco Talk.